All right, everyone, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trade. Today is Monday, May 23rd, 2022. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, decent up move here for the spiders, up 1.5%. Triple Q's up just over 1, and Dow up 1.75 here. Some of the growth stocks were not really participating that well here. It was more of a Finviz and energy kind of led rally, but some of these growth stocks do not have the worst pattern. They're still holding pattern on the daily time frame. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. Basically on the levels here, we're taking a look at the triple Qs. It's really kind of struggled with this 292, 293 area. So we basically consolidated in this range here, kind of bear flag, move down, bear flag, pretty much all day Thursday. Then you had this little gap up and that got faded and broke down immediately on Friday. So symmetrically, if you look at it, it makes sense that we kind of stalled out here. So we had the nice move up. They kind of sold us into OpEx and then they ripped us back up, and we're kind of continuing off of that, but we're stalling out here. And that makes sense because we basically spent a whole day, really 8 hours in this area, and now we're at the 7th hour. So maybe they gap us up tomorrow. Maybe we have a slight gap down and pump. Maybe we pump in the last 10 minutes. I mean, it's about 3:46 p.m. right now, so there's a chance they could just pop us into the close. Anything can happen at this point, but overall, not a terrible little pattern here on the triple Qs. You see the same thing there on the spiders, although the spiders are holding up better and really just struggling with that 397 pivot as opposed to the 292, 293 area on the triple Qs. But overall, a nice gap up, and it's basically holding the gains, trying to flag up here and kind of hugging that 50-hour moving average. Now, the big thing today that was said, at least news-wise to me, was we officially have pause talk. We officially have pivot talk. We officially have the Fed put talk. So Fed President Bostic said that the Fed would likely pause its QT actions and QT cycling in September, depending on the economy. So basically, we officially have pivot talk. Market hasn't really reacted too much to it. I mean, he did say that right around here, the market did lift up a little bit, but it's not like we've got a massive algo buy off of that or anything. But if Powell says the words pause tomorrow in a kind of positive way, the market probably will rally. So that is kind of the new buzzword that I'm looking for here. With the Fed always has these buzzwords, transitory, stuff like that. The new buzzword is going to be pause. Okay, it was, soft landing. That's always that's been a buzzword recently. So that's kind of what we're looking for tomorrow. But be aware of that. So they're already talking about pausing and pivoting and so on. This is how they prep the market. They make these comments, then they walk them back. They make these comments, they walk them back. They started talking about hiking rates a year ago. Yellen started talking about higher interest rates being a good thing for the market a year ago. Okay, this is how they do it. They do it very slowly to get the market time to react. So keep that on your radar. Nothing's crazy has happened yet, but that's kind of the next thing that we're kind of looking at here, or at least the market may be looking at. Overall, from a technical picture, market is flirting here. SPY is flirting here with this upside trend line. This is really what it's all about right now to me. A confirmation above this trend line would probably give you some type of a reflex bounce here, a good reflex rally. Now, we do have that daily 20 moving average here, and that has been sold 1, 2, 3 times. So I have a hard time believing that they're going to sell it a 4th time. Maybe we do sell and we put in a higher low. That's possible. They pull the rug here. Typically, the way the market works is it doesn't give you the same trade that many times because too many people will jump on it, and eventually market makers will rip it in the other direction. So we'll have to be on guard for that. If it does work out, then hey, we probably go back down and test the lows. But we did put in a nice tail candle in here Friday, and usually that should signal some type of a short-term low here. We talked about the triple Qs hitting that 50% fib. I mean, look at these levels here. Good level there. The 50% fib. Tesla had a 50% fib. I can show you that right here. So going back to the pandemic lows, big level there on Tesla getting tested. And, it's getting a little bit of a bounce today, although this has been under pressure due to Elon and all the Twitter nonsense. But Apple here coming into a really good level on Friday and getting a nice bounce here, up almost 3.5%. Look at that pivot high there, 100-week moving average, and now getting bid off of that. So there is, a lot of things coming into good levels. And again, I feel like I've been saying this a lot recently, but it's really just up to the bulls to prove it. Everything's kind of just set up for a rally, but the bulls got to make it happen. Whether that's just gapping it up overnight, whether that's Powell saying something. I mean, we really just need to see follow through from the bulls. And once we do, this market will rally. It will get a counter trend bounce. But, until that happens, you got to be guarded, and you got to be, play everything kind of close to the vest here. All right, so we talked about the Qs. Well, let's talk about the Qs daily. So you got the same kind of trend line there, falling wedge pattern. It is much more off the highs, though. So, tech a little bit weaker, but all things considered, it's, not a terrible pattern here. Let's look at the Russell 2000. Again, putting in higher lows. So, I've showed you guys this a couple of times here, but look at that trend line going back to 2016. Coinciding with the 50-month moving average and these two, previous all-time high here and the pre-pandemic high. Then you've got a weekly 200 moving average, and why not just take a fib here just for laughs here? Oh, it's also a 50% fib. So you got to think that there is some type of a bounce coming in this market here. And the higher lows there on the IWM probably suggest that. So whenever you see small caps leading, that's usually a good sign. Dow here, so the diamond getting a nice reflex bounce here, up 2%. Or just under that, a little bit off the highs, but big tail candle there. Walmart getting a nice bounce. That is helping out tremendously. I mean, this is just way oversold here, especially for a company like Walmart. Also, Bank of America getting a nice bid, was up 6.5% at one point. We'll talk about Finviz a little bit later, but those are helping out the Dow a little bit here. Semiconductors, a little bit weaker this morning. I kind of noticed that. And I tweeted about that, said semis really need to participate, otherwise they could potentially fade this rally. And the rally didn't get faded, but it hasn't really been as strong as you would have thought. And semiconductors have a lot to do with that. Nvidia does report earnings on Wednesday, so maybe that is part of the reason there. IGV, on the other hand, so this is kind of what I was talking about with the higher lows and the growth. So, again, just like the Russell, you got to move up. Little pullback, filled the gap. And you can see it here on the Russell as well. Filled that gap nicely, got a bit off of it. And now kind of putting in a little flag pattern. And what I like about it is you're finishing off the lows here as we get into the close. It's getting a nice little bid. I can see right now on my other screen. So it's moving up a little bit. And you do have the potential for kind of an ABC move up, ABC up move here. See XBI, same kind of thing. Hitting that 20 moving average, stalling out. It's getting a slight bid here though. But again, not a terrible pattern. In some of the growth names, look at ARC. I like this, it's amazing, but this is not a terrible bullish pattern here. And it's bidding up here in the final 10 minutes. So it's, going to finish off the lows. So it is hitting that 20 and you're consolidating beneath that. This can get a move up. If the market gets a move, these stocks are going to move nicely. So growth is not in a terrible position here. Would have liked to have seen it participate today, but, doesn't always work out perfectly. We're seeing the market bid up a little bit here in the final 10 minutes. Apple starting to lead a little bit, so that is a good sign. Let's look at the Dow Transports. So getting a nice reflex bounce as well. 14,000, or really this red line here, just in this vicinity, is going to be your resistance on the upside. Maybe it can get up to 14.3, somewhere in that area, but this is a big breakdown here on the Dow Transports and on the weekly time frame as well. Not a good level, or not a good breakdown, but it did hit a good level though, so it can get a little bit of a bounce here, and obviously that will help out the market as a whole. Rates here, not a whole lot going on. I got a nice bid up 2.5 here on the 10-year, but ultimately broke trend, and you do have kind of a mini little head and shoulder here. You can see it right there on the TNX. So many little, here's your shoulder head and then a little shoulder. So if this does play out, again, I've been saying 2.5, that is kind of the area that we're looking at. Maybe it gets a little bit of a pop off the 50 MA, but overall rates kind of quiet today, and I do expect them to be in backing and filling mode. TYX, same kind of deal, nothing really changed there. And HYG, JNK, also kind of flat to positive today as well. LQD was negative, as it is more positively correlated with TLT. All right, so moving on here. So let's look at XHB, so home builders. Again, kind of an interesting pattern here, coming off that double bottom. If you look at ITB, it actually made higher lows. So again, you still have the potential for kind of an ABC up pattern, just like on IGV and, XBI and ARC and all of them. So, you are getting this, and here's the VNQ as well. Same kind of pattern here. So, move up. It's weaker, but it's still, it's still in play. So I would say max upside for the VNQ here is probably about 100. ITB, I don't see it getting much through, 60, maybe 61, but it can get a move up here in the short term, and we'll see if it does. All right, so Finns here. So we talked about Bank of America, BAC. So XLF stalling out at this 20 moving average. Let's see here. We've got a high of 34.24 and a high exactly to the penny, 34.24. So not a higher high, but we did challenge it at least. And you're going to close back above this pivot, it looks like, or very close to it. So that would be a good sign here. Now XLF on the weekly, got very oversold. Would have preferred it if it filled this gap and hit that previous all-time high. I would have loved it. That would have been a great long area. But in any case, it's getting a nice bid here. And, it's struggling with that 20, but, who says it can't consolidate and push up? Bank of America, we talked about that. So up nicely. Take a look at JP Morgan today. Was up almost 7% at one point, coming off the highs. Took out all these pivots here, so that is a good sign, and it's doing it on good volume. So we took out all these pivots, basically a week's worth of selling, 123.78. It's above 124 currently, so that is a good sign for financials. Take a look at Goldman. We're kind of following this falling wedge pattern, had a fakey breakout, and then tagged it again, and now potentially breaking out of it again, stalling at that 50 MA. So if Finns can get a lift here, obviously that's going to help the market. I feel like a kind of a broken record saying all this stuff, but, again, it's just really up to the bulls to prove it at this point. But again, nice little move here, and it is peaking above that trend line. The more times you knock on the door, and we'll talk about this, the same thing with the spiders, the more time you knock on this door, the weaker those hinges are going to get. So we'll see if it can get a lift here. XBD, same exact trend line. So down, 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 trend line, knocking on the door here. And, again, a little ABC up move. It did make a higher high. So, we'll just, you got to simplify the chart sometimes, but there's your little higher high. So maybe you can get a bid moving forward. But overall, there's room for a move here. But again, bulls need to prove it. All right. So crude here, energy. Basically a non-story today. It's flat. Just refer to the analysis I've been doing this last several weeks. Lower highs, higher lows. It's really up to which way it breaks here. But as long as lower highs stay intact, I still have a downside bias for this. I do think it needs to go into backing and filling mode. All things considered, XLE up nicely, 2.5%. Still not making 52-week highs inside of this red bar, but it is up nicely and it's helping out the market. XOP, however, did make a little higher high here, so maybe it can go up to that 145 handle, as did OIH, so maybe it can get up to 290 again, but there's going to be good resistance up here in this area. Big story of the day, nat gas ripping higher. It did hit my level for a short. We did not take a short though, and the reason for that is because we had this nice little pullback here. So you came up here, I had a level at about 866. We did not get to it last week. If we got to it last week, I would have shorted it, but we pulled back into the 20. I don't like when you do that. So it got a pop and I'm not touching it. And it's a good thing because if I did, I'd already be underwater. But we'll see if this pivot holds. It doesn't mean because it got a pop, doesn't mean that it's going to make new highs. Doesn't mean it's going to sustain new highs if it does. But really, I'm kind of looking for this still to come in a little bit, but we'll have to see if it can hold the highs first. And if it, it makes new highs, then we'll reevaluate it there. But overall, I'm not doing anything with it at the current time. Dollar index. So I told you guys last week we did technical damage. Right there on Thursday, took out that 20 MA, took out this kind of big steep channel. And this is obviously headed for that 50-day moving average. You have a little bit of a pivot there at 101. That's your obvious level for support. I do expect it to get through that. And this level here at about 99.50 is probably its ultimate target in the short run. But a nice little pullback there for the dollar index, which is helping out gold. Again, I told you guys we took profits on Fridays on our GLD calls. Could have made a little bit more off of it, but it's not worth it in this environment. You can't be greedy in this environment. You got to take gains when you see them because this market can turn on a dime. And this is what it's like when you're in a bear and you're in this kind of grindy trend where there really is no trend. So you got to be a little bit more nimble with your positions and, protect your gains at all costs. That's the point of a bear market. Anyways, GDX here. Basically getting up to that 20 MA. I don't see it getting through that at the current time. You got that 200 above it and a big gap window there at 33.50 or so on the GDX. Silver much weaker than gold. and really just struggling with that 20 period moving average. It might need to consolidate if it wants to get up through that to that 23 handle. All right, so market's closing here. So yeah, Spider's got a little bit of a bid here into the close, finished near the high. So that's a good sign, just under 2%. Triple Q's up 1.66. We'll reevaluate this in a minute here, almost done. Platinum pulling back off that 50-day moving average. So not kind of a non-story there. And Palladium, again, possibly a little ABC up pattern here. This is just a tough metal to read. It's such a thin market, but you could have another ABC up pattern, just like a lot of those tech stocks that we looked at. And copper doing a good job. So it didn't even need to do any consolidation really to get through that 20 MA. Again, I told you upside about 445, maybe 450 there on copper. I still think, I would have liked it a lot better if it went down to test 4, but there's a lot of support at 390 if it does make a lower high and come down that way. So we'll continue to watch that moving forward. All right, Bitcoin here. So this was interesting. So Bitcoin started moving up this morning, and it was helping out the market a little bit, but now it's starting to come back down. So not a great sign here for the market. I do like to see Bitcoin lead a little bit as it is a risk asset. You can see this inside bar a little bit better on Ether. If you can close above this red bar high, though, at 2108, that probably clears you up to, at least, this 20 moving average is kind of minor at this point, but that probably clears you up to about 2400. But at this point, again, it's just like the market, it's in prove it mode. I still think this tail candle holds. Even if we go down there and test that, there's just too much demand that was in that level. And look at the volume there. But overall, you want to see Bitcoin kind of shape up a little bit here, as it is basically leveraged NASDAQ. And it is a leading indicator usually for the equity markets. Although maybe, maybe it's a little bit broken now ever since the Terra Luna UST debacle. And that's always the case. That always can be the case. So we'll continue to watch it. If we get any major moves in either direction, I will, of course, update you as I see them. All right. Anyway, so yeah, obviously big story or big thing to really take away from today is this upper trend line. If we can gap above it, that to me clears us at least to this gap window at 403.80, and that would coincide with the 20-day moving average. And really what we're going to look for there, if that does break out or if that does get tested, is do we make a higher low off of it? If we make a higher low off of it, then we probably go into short squeeze mode. That takes you up to 420, 425. If we can't hold it, then guess what? We're going back to the lows. Pretty much as simple as that. All right, guys, wrap it up here. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Like, comment, subscribe, etc. And I will talk to you all tomorrow.